prophets of Jehovah God Almighty. Amen. And warn them, oh God, that when you are in power and in authority, you don't touch the savings of the poor. Because when the poor people decide to cry, there will be judgment from heaven. Lord.
Well, there's no doubt Ghana is in a difficult place as we speak. Self-inflicted economic crisis is the description that has been given to our situation as a country. On 5th December 2022, the government of Ghana launched Ghana's Domestic Debt Exchange Program, an invitation for the voluntary exchange of approximately 137 billion cedis of the domestic notes and bonds of the Republic. And that included the ESLA and Dachi bonds for a package of new bonds to be issued by the Republic. There have been outright rejections, first from organized labor on the inclusion of their pension funds, then now a more organized and fiery rejection from individual bondholders, including pensioners who have highlighted the dire implications it will have on them. It appears it is time for a complete recalibration as the deadline expires tomorrow, January 16, 2023. Crucial decisions will be taken and announced amidst more public outpour and outcries, and should I say press conferences. Now, between accepting this debt exchange program and a total default by government, a rock and a hard place, isn't the debt exchange a much better alternative for these bondholders? And how crucial is this program to Ghana getting a board approval for an IMF program? These are but a few questions requiring answers. And my guest tonight, Professor Godfred Bopping, an economist and professor of finance. I also have Senyor Hosi, convener, Individual Bondholders Forum, will help you understand where we are as we speak. We are live on the Joy News channel. We are on Joy 99.7 FM for our radio audience. We are on myjoyonline.com. DSTV, we are on 421. GoTV is 144, as well as all our social media platforms. I am Emefa Apau, and this is The Probe. As always, your questions are welcome, and we'll dig deeper into them after this break. Please stay with me.
These very sensitive matters relating to lives and livelihood in the country. Indeed, and I agree that many of the elderly in society who've invested in these bonds are using them for survival. You know, buying medications, some of them using the earnings to take care of their kids, the school fees and so on that they are paying. So if all of a sudden these things come to an abrupt end, it's going to be very negatively impactful on the future of this country. So I agree that we need to have things through. I believe certainly this would not have been brought on board if there had not been any critical thinking. But beyond that, because a government is put in place to ensure that the burden on the people is lessened, there are real problems, and maybe we need to have better engagement to see the better way forward.
Does this engagement include exempting the individual bondholders, at least for now?
I don't want to make any commitment to that on behalf of government, because honestly, you should ferry the concerns to government, to the president, to the finance minister. And then we can sit down and do further consultations amongst ourselves, then also stepping out. If we have to further add value to the decision that has been taken, certainly I believe government will not be found wanting.
What surprises me most is the fact that the Jamaican example has been touted as the best practice because of the engagement that it went through before a final decision was made. Ghana had an option to learn from best practices where proper engagement was done in the case of Jamaica. And it's very simple. When you Google it, you see the best practices and everybody else talks about Jamaica. Today, Ghana's won. We are complaining of lack of engagement. You are saying that you are being forced to sign an agreement that you do not even understand, and no one has obviously engaged you. I think the time has come for us to call on a minister responsible for finance to immediately suspend the debt exchange program and engagement?
My husband invested in government bonds, I think 2 years ago. He was laid off he was laid off for no reason. He had a redundancy package, including his personal savings, which is worth a lot. I don't want to say it on air. He's at home. He hardly sleeps. He hardly talks about it. And we have school fees to pay. Our oldest is 16 years old. And we have twins. Our oldest and our twins, they are 3. As at now, we've not paid their school fees. And that's our only livelihood. I don't even know how we will survive if they include us. I'm also a housewife. I don't work. So how am I going to survive? How? We are begging the government. Just imagine someone will be in the house eating, taking the kids to school, doing everything. And your livelihood, something you have suffered for so many years, you are being ripped of it. Is it fair? Is it fair?
You say your husband hasn't been talking.
No.
How has this affected him?
He barely sleeps at night. He barely talks. Even if you want to have a discussion with him, he hardly responds. I'm young. I don't want to even lose my husband. Please help me.
Welcome back. This is The Probe here on the Joy News channel. We are also on Joy 99.7 FM. We're on myjoyonline.com and all our social media platforms. Tonight's program, we're going to focus more on your questions. You've hit us with a number of them, and we would get into all these questions that you've sent already and are sending in as well. It appears as some form of sustained pressure on government on the exclusion of individual bonds. We've seen what happened with organized labor. And this evening, my guests tonight on via Zoom, first I have Professor Govt Bokping. He's an economist and a professor of finance. He would try and break everything down for us, those of you who are worried and don't know exactly what the way forward is as the expiration goes on tomorrow. That's Monday, January 16. I also have Senor Hosi joining me in the studios. He's a convener, Individual Bondholders Forum, and there are a number of other fora like that and that have come up as a result of the government's decision to include individual bondholders in this particular debt exchange program. Good evening, Prof, and thank you so much for joining us here on The Probe tonight.
Yes, good evening, and good evening to our cherished viewers.
It's good to see you, Prof. So the key question that I've seen, at least, a lot of people are asking, is expiring tomorrow. What happens? If there is no extension, no announcement from government, what is the option available to individual bondholders who are watching you right now?
Well, thank you very much. These are very difficult times for Ghana. We sympathize with Ghanaians in as much as we are with government that we need to restore macroeconomic stability. We must be mindful that we don't do so at a great cost and perhaps irreparable to private sector and households. So, as you rightly said, we can only appeal to government that it's a program. We have control over it so that as much as possible, government could extend the deadline and then come with a bit more accommodative proposal in a consensus building manner that may even be possible and attractive to individual bondholders in a certain way that allows all of us to share the burden and lighten the burden so that it is not concentrated on a segment of investor creditor group that disproportionately affect them. So I'm hopeful that by the close of tomorrow, government will make some announcement. I think it's just fair. It's just fair in the interest of nation building that we are able to carry everybody along. In as much as we agree, and I've said before that where we find ourselves, there is no way government can meet its future financial obligations as and when they fall due without sharp adjustment to its fiscal in terms of expenditure and revenue, and then the financing mix, right? And therefore, a certain level of debt restructuring we should be able to accept as Ghanaians, right? So that we can come out of this together, because the impact of macroeconomic instability would again erode the value of those existing bonds, So if we're able to restructure and restore macroeconomic stability, it preserves the value for everyone, whether we like it or not. Without even government applying the debt exchange, we have already suffered some haircuts because of high inflation that has practically rendered the real return on all instruments across all government securities to be negative. We ended 2022 with inflation of 54.1%. Right. So there's conventional wisdom in restoring macroeconomic stability and bring so that we're able to also enter a process of disinflation, because low inflation in itself is desirable. That said, we are a bit surprised the scope and the approach that government has adopted. And I think that the approach itself makes it a bit more painful, much more than how much people are going to lose. Right. And the reason I'm saying that the approach makes it much more painful is that we are doing something that looks as though we are under a military rule, but we are under democracy. Under property owning democracy, you could not tear through people's property and investment the way we are doing. Right. So to that extent, what then is important is a certain level of consensus building. Now, the reason the consensus building is fundamental is that if you look at the time period that government has proposed that some people will get their last installment in 2038. Wow, that's just too long, right? What that tells you is that the pain of this present adjustment is going to stay with us for so long, and the memories of that will not inure to restoring confidence in the financial sector. Now, the other thing also is that if you look at when government made this announcement, December 5th, and the deadline that they have given, it leaves individual bondholders, private sector, it gives us no room to make any adjustment and replan to be able to sustain our lifestyle and the responsibilities that we have to carry. It's so sudden. Okay, and when it's sudden like that, you deny people. Everybody prefers relative certainty. So because people would have made plans for their coupon payment, and when it matures, what they will do with it. So it doesn't have to get to the point where the state is now choosing lifestyles for individuals, households, and the private sector as a result of how the state is just altering their investment.
Okay. Well, these are key questions that we've received from our audience that we'll be getting into, because like I said, I want to involve the audience as much as possible because these individual bondholders are out there and they want the answers. We'll get into it. But Mr. Jose has also taken his seat in the studios with us. Thank you once again for joining us, Mr. Jose. Quite a busy week for you.
Quite a very heavy week, and my life sort of has stopped. As if I have nothing else to do, but fighting for the good of everyone is a very important thing. This has to do with lives. Homes, 1.3 million homes and possibly 6.5 million livelihoods. It's not something that can be taken for granted and wished away. Unfortunately, not everybody is as financially literate. So once you have the capacity to appreciate it, you must make that constructively brought to bear on the good of humanity. And that's what's really driving a lot of us in this particular exercise.
Well, at the last count, 30,000, nearly 30,000 people had subscribed.
We are currently at 57,621.
Okay. 57,000.
Yes. 622.
Okay, yeah. 57,622. That's the membership now. And we're looking at about 6 million people, you know.
Accounts are about 1.3 million. You see, there are two different sides of it. There's the individual bondholders, those who hold the accounts directly. And we also call, those ones have CSD accounts. And you also have another group of people we call the indirect bondholders. Okay. So they invest in mutual funds, and the mutual funds will invest on the bond market. So they don't go directly, but they go through someone. So like maybe you have your funds at Tesla Capital's Triple T, EDC, or Fidelity Flip, or Burak Capital something. That's an indirect one. Okay. And these are people who are contributing 500 Ghana cedis every month out of their salary, 1,000, 2,000, just to build a savings for a rainy day or for a particular project and education, their school, their children's university education, to pay for some land deposit, from mortgage deposit, so they can all have meaningful lives. And they opt to trust their government. And I think that taking any decision as drastic as they currently are being faced with is not a viable proposition. And more importantly, it is not necessary. You know, the finance minister has said that he needs 80% compliance. Yeah. This entire mix will just take you somewhere around 10, 11%. So you still have 90%, within which you can get your 80%. So why do you go straight and hit individuals instantly? And it's not a prerequisite from the IMF. So what is it? How mean can one want to be? You know, and I don't think that it was thought of like that. I think that maybe it was a matter of statistics, people juggling with numbers, so you drop this person in. That's why I keep telling people that what you're looking at on your spreadsheet are not numbers. They are lives. You know, and it should be lost on anybody who is in the policy space. All right, you're not some remote person doing modeling. All right, I've been a financial engineer for a good part of my life, modeled things, managed assets of $1 billion for my clients. I engineered ESLA, and this is not what we structured in. Legally, let's get these things clear. I see Gabi has put something out. You should stop misinforming people. You stop misinforming people. When you are not at risk, you speak anyhow. You don't do things like that. You should think about the same people who went out there, queued to vote for you, that today you can enjoy the power that you have. So be sensitive with your speak. You know, people get lost on the place in policy when they have power and they have money. All right, but that is not the calling. Policy space is for service. It's for service. It's not for lauding. It's for service. And that should not be missed on any one of them up there. No one. Power is fungible. It comes and it goes. In 2 years, none of these people talking will have that power. They may carry some money, but don't have that power. And you never know what God does. Oh, God is not asleep. Me too, I brought a memory verse today. Okay. Exodus 5:1. Go and read it. Exodus 5:1.
What's there?
Go and read it.
Okay. Well,
go and read it.
I'll look it up for you.
Pharaoh, let my people go.
Well, you've petitioned, at least. You sent some petitions. We've heard the majority leader talk about the fact that if this goes through, wipe out the middle class, amongst others. Please tell me that since you started this campaign, you've had some government level of talk with the team, the Individual Bondholders Forum, amongst others. The deadline is tomorrow. What has happened? Are we going to see any change?
I repeat, say no to DDE. Hashtag say no to DDE. Nothing will happen to you. There's a contract in place between you and the state. That is why they've brought you the document for you to accept. If they could do it on their own, the way they are throwing their hands and saying that your thing will be worthless, why did they come to you for you to agree? Think about it. Think about it. Our legal team is clear. They themselves are clear. The Attorney General is clear. Gabi Ochridakun, who is speaking and posting those things, he is clear. But you're on an agenda for what? In all these things, everybody is supporting the concept. Are we taking a haircut? We're all taking a haircut. You have increased taxes. Have you seen anybody go on demonstration? No. When we introduced VAT, what did they do? When Rollins introduced VAT, what did they do? Today, where is VAT? You've gone there, and nobody is complaining. We are cooperative citizens. Some of us voted this party into office because we believed in their attitudes and the culture, only to find something different. Nobody has a problem. You want to solve a problem, everybody understands you have a problem. But first of all, understand your problem. You've gone accruing a lot more debt. Your net borrowings from 2017 to now is over 170 billion. Question, what did you use the money for? Only 1/3 of that money went into capital expenditure. It is capital expenditure that's supposed to spare your growth. So that's supposed to drive productivity on your revenue, on your entire growth as an economy. What did you do with 2/3 of the money? Economic consumption. When you manage funds like that, why won't you be in trouble? And where is this consumption going? You look at the size of government. You add on about 300,000 people into the entire public sector workforce. Over this time, job for the boys. Our public sector has not been productive for a long time. What are we adding more people into for? When you do that, you move a lot more money in there, and there's less capital for private sector, which is the productive sector in this economy, to really thrive. That's why government, if you look at government share of GDP, it is growing. Because right now there's only one big boy in the house. But that is not what an NPP government, a center-right government, a property-owning democracy is about. I don't recognize this party at all. At all. And I don't think that if they are honest with themselves, they will recognize their own party. And I think people should be adults in that room and bring wisdom and sanity to bear on the party. Because we are lost on they're totally lost on what this party is about. You think about a center-right government, you think about a lean government. That empowers its people. And that's what Kufuor was talking about. That's what Kufuor was talking about. Talking about the productivity of the people. What do we have now? A very fat government, a very fat ministerial populace, a very fat presidential set of staffers. Doing what? Spending time tweeting and insulting citizens of the state.
Okay.
Please, let's get this right. You appointed, now look at the SOEs. All kinds of deputies everywhere. Where we didn't have deputies, now we are getting deputies. We don't even get one, we get two. Everybody has to go in a certain kind of car. Everybody has to fly business class. You have all kinds of directors who keep creating things and pumping and pushing people in there. The same thing, we are funding lifestyles we cannot sustain. We run flagship projects that we don't have funding for. So at the end of the day, you come and keep borrowing, eating from the private sector. When government comes out to borrow, it competes with you and me if we try and do business. Because the same bank that has to give us money wants to give them. But the question is, who is more productive? It's the private sector. So you pump a lot more money into the unproductive side. And then when you end up with debt, you come and see that it is our fault. How is it our fault? Now look into the budget, which is a very critical thing that I think a lot of people may be missing.
I'm sure when the questions, let's bring in the audience. Like I said, we'll try and then get more questions from the audience. Then as we go along the line, we can make all those inputs. Yeah, I think it's a good time for us to bring in the audience questions. We have a number of them this evening and we'll try to exhaust as many as possible. So starting with this particular one, I think it's directed to Senor. It says, what alternatives are you offering government when you say you don't want to accept the debt exchange program? That's Kweku's question there. We have another one for Professor Bokping. It says, how crucial is this program to Ghana getting a board approval for an IMF program? Habibu's question. Senor's question, do bondholders recognize that saying no could mean the possibility of a real default where bondholders may actually lose everything? Nashom is asking, and that's also reflected in the tweet that he's been referring to by Gabi. And Sego says, from where you sit, that's for you, Professor Bokping, are these bondholders justified in their rejection of the debt exchange program? Isn't this burden sharing? That's Sego's question. So for now, these are the questions. Let's bring in Prof. So are the bondholders right in this rejection is the question that we have that's asking. First off, maybe you would have to address that for us. This is the concern from the bondholders. And also, if we reject it, are we going to get the IMF program? That's the question also that came in from Habibo.
All right, thank you very much. I think it is possible that we can repackage this debt exchange in a manner that allows greater participation and acceptability. I will push more for that angle. So when we are saying maybe, and I lean towards the current proposition that reject the current debt exchange in its current form. And the reason I support reject is that it can be modified, it can be repackaged in a manner that ensures that we are able to manage the delicate balance between repairing the public sector balance sheet and also preserving the balance sheet of households and the private sector that allows us all to get along. Now, I'm not too sure the bondholders are running away from burden sharing. I think it's about how fair is that burden sharing. And when we discuss the burden sharing, we are not only looking at it within investor category or creditor category. Burden sharing must be fair and equitable between the fiscal, where we are talking about revenue and expenditure. Government has demonstrated its fiscal side in the 2023 budget, but then you will see that the fiscal consolidation is heavily on the revenue side, and government is seeking to grow its revenue by more than 60%. Right? And again, it means that is going to come from households and the private sector. So already we are contributing in that direction. But the expenditure side, where we believe that government could have done a little bit more, And I'm sure Senor has spoken about that extensively. And there are even people within the MPP party that feel that the government could have done a little bit better. In fact, that is what you put on the table in crisis moment, and that is what leadership is about, where the leader first demonstrates how austerity is biting him or her, and uses that moral standing to ask other people to come to the table. We are not seeing that in the case of Ghana. Government wants to preserve its lifestyle and impose a different lifestyle on the citizens and then households. I think that is not fair. The other question is, what would this mean for the IMF program?
Yes.
The IMF is not asking us to force this debt exchange down our throat. It's not from the IMF.
Then why are we doing it?
It's from your government.
Okay.
It's from your government. If you look at the Jamaica example and other countries that I believe had also gone for IMF program, when your debt is judged to be unsustainable, there is no requirement that you should do something within the shortest possible time to reach debt sustainability before a program is approved. What would have been expected? And I believe that the IMF also cares about the balance sheet and the comfort of households in the private sector, is that you build consensus. So assuming we had a credible representative of domestic creditor committee, then there is some level of engagement, and you would have secured the buy-in of your creditors. That assurance underpin would inform a certain credible plan that you can then present to the IMF that, you know what, yes, my debt is unsustainable, but we have taken steps. This is the plan when we have the buy-in of our creditors, and therefore that could be packaged together with the staff level agreement, and the board would approve. We have the example of Zambia and other countries. Remember that when the IMF, the staff level was reached and the press conference, they were very clear that they want assurance from our creditors and then financiers. They want that assurance before the staff level agreement will go to the board. Now, remember that the IMF also said that in addition to debt exchange program or restructuring of our debt, there are other prior actions. So there are some prior actions that Ghana government must fulfill before the staff level agreement will go to the board, the management and then the board. So debt exchange or debt restructuring, we decided to call it debt exchange. You can call it debt operation, debt restructuring, debt swap, whatever. Okay. It's just one of the prior actions. Okay, there are other prior actions, perhaps, which may also include auditing of COVID-19 expenditure and some other things that government has to do. So let's look at it that the scope and the speed with which we are doing this exchange is solely our doing and not the IMF.
Okay.
Because we know that the IMF will not lend to an unsustainable situation. But what is important is for you to present a credible plan based on consensus building. And I will tell you something. My suspicion is that the IMF would have suggested to government to go the way of Jamaica, okay, and have a domestic creditor committee. But government didn't want to do that. And I believe that in place, government sought to put in place the 5-member committee, right, that they did there, and then did some consultations. And I am sure government didn't take into consideration the report of the 5-member committee. And I think that the 5-member committee's report should be published. And let's see the level of engagement and the input that stakeholders made into that and what government is implementing now. It's possible we'll see a wide variance, okay? And when you see that, then it tells you that the scope and the severity and the drastic nature of the debt exchange we are doing now cannot be blamed on the IMF. It's solely our government.
Okay.
And this is highest level of insensitivity. Well,
Senor, there were questions for you as well and alternatives you are offering government. But before I get to you, you've been making reference to this particular tweet put out by Gabi. Let me read that tweet. At least we've seen it on Twitter. It says the debt exchange program is voluntary for individual bondholders, but a very necessary evil for our economy. Its success is critical to restoring macroeconomic stability, securing an IMF program, and it hits those of us holding bonds very hard. A straight no, it is no solution, he asked. That's an exclamation mark. Ghana is in a very difficult place. What we are seeing with the mobilization of agitation on individual bondholders poses a real and serious risk, worse than what we witnessed when opposition to e-levy succeeded in derailing an already shaking macroeconomic situation from 2021. I'm sorry, but we have to face the hard, painful truths. We ain't sitting pretty. Our focus must be on how the burden to individual bondholders may be possibly eased, but not to take the hardline position of simply saying no to participation.
Right, so
it will come back to hit
coming
us
from the same
harder.
person. It's good you mentioned e-levy. It's the same person who said 1,001 things about e-levy.
So let me conclude. Let me conclude on that. It says if the no compromise opposition to it wins, what then has been achieved? It may lead to national debt default. So what then happens to the value of your bonds after? Potential worthless. If participation is low, we jeopardize resolving the economic crisis and hardships.
You know, this is what bullies do. They sell fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD, F-U-D. So I tell you, hashtag dump that FUD. We are Ghanaians, and we are clear on what our national anthem tells us. It tells us that we should be bold to defend forever the cause of our freedom and our rights. Fill our hearts with true humility. Where's the humility? Make us cherish fearless honesty and help us to resist oppressors' rule. This is an oppressor speaking. This is an oppressor speaking. This is not a collaborator. This is not a partner. An oppressor speaking. So he's selling to you fear. Why didn't he say it will not? Why is he using the word potential? He's a lawyer. The same person told us 1,001 things about e-levy. That e-levy cry will even cure diabetes. What is it that e-levy was not going to cure in this country? What did e-levy do for us? With e-levy, we won't go to IMF. Where are we right now?
It says it was because of the opposition.
What opposition? For how many months? You still got your policy. So you should get your numbers. So that's grammar. You see the problem? Gabi, please stay out of this. If you're not here to help the people of Ghana, you are not part of government. Step aside. You are a friend of government. We all understand. If I need assistance, I'll come to you. I'll come to you. I'm a friend. No problem. But please, step aside if you don't understand the matter. One, do they need it? Government does not need it. Government says, I need 80%. These people are just about 10%. So, don't you have your 80% to deal with? You're already talking to the people who are really holding the funds, who are the ones supposed to solve your problem. Why do you want to interfere in somebody's life? Now look at it. Somebody who says he's broke, go into the budget. Go into the budget. You have increased your expenditure by 53%. You have increased your compensation. Huge. You have put in capital expenditure of 27 billion. Contingency, 27 billion. Ghana has never spent that kind of money before. That tells you this is a government who is in a mood to want to splash money and be the only one in town. But he wants to do it using your savings. But it's the same government who has come to you to tell you, pay taxes, and you have agreed. I want to increase taxes because it's difficult. You have agreed. I brought in COVID levy because it's difficult. I have agreed. 2.5, I have agreed. The same government that is managing the affairs of the country. And where is inflation? Has your salary increased since inflation? No. Has yours grown by 50%? No. Meanwhile, I'm already at the reverse because now I'm an unemployed graduate. So you think about it. People are already sacrificing for the economy as being managed by the current government. Don't make it worse. When you're a shareholder of a bank, you are clear. Then the next 5 to 10 years, you are getting nothing. I'm a shareholder of a bank. I know I'm getting nothing. And then you go to the fixed income market too. The government tells you are getting nothing. And does government need it? Government does not need it. So now let's get it clear. Let me get everybody well educated. So those who have gone to the law school and are refusing to remember the law, it will remind you very clearly. There are 4 different bonds that are really on this table. 1 is the government of Ghana city bonds. 2 is the government of Ghana dollar bonds, local dollar bonds. 3 is the Dachi bonds. And 4 is the ESLA bonds. Yeah. I'll start with the last 2. The last 2 are securitized structured papers. They are not issued directly by central government. They are issued through SPVs who have irrevocable assignments of revenue from central government. Those revenues are not impaired. Where is the default? ESLA is dependent on the petrol. So if people are still buying petrol, where is the default? You see the misinformation in this kind of oppressive submissions. Nobody should succumb to fear. Fear is what oppressors thrive on, and our national anthem tells us to resist it. So we are saying no. Second is the Dutch bond. Irrevocable, same thing. On the govt fund. You see, politicians always mismanage everything. They get their own largesse in whatever they mismanage. We see it, we don't talk. Then after that, you come and punish us. We still accept. Now you want to enter our pocket. Why? You want to rape everybody in my house. My brother, I won't take it. Dutch bonds, you also have securitized flows. It is not impaired. So where is the default? If they try and default, every single one of the trustees are Dutch. Every single one of the trustees at ESLA PLC, you are in trouble. Simon, I don't think you want to go and sleep at the wrong place anytime in your life. Frederick Dennis, I don't think that's what you want. Akes, you are sitting on Dutch bond. Who will come for you? You have to give us our money. You are a trustee. And you have a responsibility to those who have subscribed. So the real risk now is sitting with government of Ghana bonds. And now this is the story. Government of Ghana bonds are structured today. Government is obliged to pay you. If government does not pay you, and you sue government, you can attach any property of the state. And the Supreme Court in a recent ruling, I think Kizito Bayo was the one who handled that case, has ruled. Government is not insulated. So you can take any asset of government. But let me tell you the sensible thing that this oppressor submission is coming from. In the new arrangement that they are lying to you, they are trying to force you or bully you into accepting. Government has taken immunity against any attachment of any security. So even if it comes and says that next year, 2 years, I won't pay again, I cannot pay, I won't pay, you can't do anything. You go and sue government, you will win, but you can't attach anything. You don't have you don't suffer that lack of right in your current facility. So when you reject it, you still have it. Okay. So the current one that you have already, you are in a perfect position than going for anything at all. So what is potentially worthless is the new bond. The new bond is what is potentially very worthless, because government can wake up any morning and tell you that I can't pay, and you can't do FOCO. That is the truth that nobody wants to tell you. And then you come and sit here, you have read the thing, you're a lawyer, you come and misinform people like this. Somebody we all respect. He's my friend. I like him very much. He's a nice guy. But this one, I'm sorry, we are not inside together.
Okay. Well, we have more questions. I have this one from Sullivan. Yeah, we'll get into Sullivan's question. It's for Professor Pokping. He says, from a finance perspective, can the government unilaterally vary these terms without the bondholders accepting? And another one from Musbao for Prof says, between accepting this debt exchange program and a total default by government, a rock and a hard place, isn't the debt exchange a better alternative for these bondholders? That's another question there. And are there any cost-cutting measures that can serve as an alternative to the debt exchange program? Prof, these are quick 3 ones that I'm sure we can put together, and then we can get into other questions.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll take the last one first. I think Senor has already spoken also about that one. Yes, okay. There are. In fact, there is considerable room. There is considerable room for expenditure-based fiscal consolidation. And in fact, if government would want to engage the citizens and build consensus, we would demonstrate with data. And we can show that we don't need this number of this government size. Is anti-growth. The first thing, look, you know the interesting thing. These are people, we saw them as incapable of incompetence. This was how they packaged themselves to us in the run-up to the 2016. And one of the things I've struggled to understand quite is how we fell for this. That that government failed to see this coming 2 years ago is extraordinary. And they failed to take proactive measures, and we are in this is unique. That said, what government should have done right after the 2020 election was to put Ghana ahead of political party interest and personal interest. And then say that, look, my first term, maybe size matters. So many people who helped me when I was in opposition. The only way I could pay you guys back was to give you positions. But 4 years of political returns, please, it's enough. At my age, I now want to leave a legacy. I want Ghana now to remember me in the next 4 years. And looking at the mess, the election-related expenditure excesses and the effect of COVID, what government should have done immediately was to adopt a lean government and free up space. Cote d'Ivoire did it. Other serious government did it. And that was how I was saying that if government was looking at the data and where we were heading towards, government would have started preparing the minds of Ghanaians to accept a certain debt restructuring, because the government would have demonstrated how it is feeling that pain through greater expenditure cuts. But we saw exactly the opposite. Now, for those who don't sign up, please, the 2023 budget, as approved by Parliament, has fully provided for interest payment on all government securities in 2023.
100%.
But Parliament has approved that. So if government claimed that it could not pay, yes, it's because of the burden it imposes. You know, I am of the view that we don't need to go that extreme and say that we will not participate at all. What I'm hoping is that by midday tomorrow, government will say that, listen, guys, we have extended the deadline. Let's engage. Let's build consensus. That is what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting that we'll say we don't want to participate. And in fact, if government will be that open, we will all be willing to support and encourage everybody to come on board, even pensioners. Why am I saying so? Look, if you speak to people, there are those who tell you that government should take the interest and give me my principal. Should I go my somewhere? I will lean a bit more towards that and a combination. Why? Ghana's biggest problem is more interest payment. The principal, largely, we can roll it over at a new interest rate. The restructuring can. So we can look at a certain combination that preserves the balance sheet of private sector and also household. And the reason I'm saying this is that if we encourage only banks, financial institutions to accept this burden, it will come back to bite us also, because this in its current form impacts the banks and participating financial institutions heavily and systematically for the next 15 years. Look, let me tell you something. It has taken Ghana more than 30 years to build our capital market and asset management. What this government is doing is reversing decades of progress that we have made. I don't think, look, where did we sit down to conceptualize something like this?
I can't even imagine. And look, what are the things
Why?
that we all need to know?
Look, let me tell you something.
Cabinet didn't
the
approve
whole
this.
asset
Cabinet
management
did
today.
They did not. We have
collapsed.
spoken to 5 cabinet ministers.
Okay, the whole asset management industry has practically collapsed. Nobody is trading bonds because government is very heavy in the bond market. So today, nobody. Look, let me tell you something. You know, because of men's gold and the rest of them, we said that those who invested in men's gold were lotto doctors. They were taking lotto with their money because they were taking excessive risk. People understood that. People now have directed their investment to the safest. Of course, it's difficult to have risk-free instrument in the world. In fact, risk-free instrument only exists in the textbook. It's a theoretical concept. For lack of it, we use government instrument or bills only as a surrogate. It's the closest, it's the safest. Okay, so that is what I'll say. So I don't want us to take the approach that we don't want to participate, but what I'm asking for is a certain revision to the debt exchange, because where we find ourselves, a certain level of restructuring is unavoidable.
Okay.
Because
so, Senor,
we all want to have a country we can be proud of.
Okay, so Senor, a review, recalibration, government coming back tomorrow. Are you ready for engagement and consensus?
It's not a request. But fundamentally, look, I'm a business owner. I'm MD of businesses that have investments in this. Have you seen me come talk about companies?
No.
Because you need to be sensitive to where it hits and know how you manage policy and make sure when you are doing it, it is necessary. It is not necessary. It is not necessary. What government has failed to do in this whole thing is to really cut its expenditure. When you know you are in debt, the first thing you do is to start reducing your expenditure. True or false? But what do we have from government? Government expenditure has rather ballooned. So from 136 now to 190. So you tell me that this person looks like somebody who is really willing to restructure his debt. What government is saying is that I'm a politician. I need to score my political points. I need to take care of too many unproductive people in my workforce. All right? And I need to make my party foot soldiers feel good. I have these projects that I don't have money for, but I have to get it. I've increased your taxes. You have paid, but I still don't find it enough. So now I'm coming to collect your savings. The implications of this bond structure at your conservative position, where you're actually using the same coupon rates, what you actually now get is a 50% loss. If you use inflation rate, you are losing 88.2%. So what is the value of your money? Think about it. People have built these savings over years. And people need these monies now for their self-sustenance. They need it for self-sustenance. I got a call from a guy, Isaku. Mm-hmm. He was just crying. Yeah. He can't even tell his wife. Because they've built their savings, they put it in these funds, and they are supposed to take their child to university. Mm-hmm. And they are twins. He doesn't know what to do. And this is the month. And tomorrow, one of the papers is supposed to mature. And the government, government will pay. Because government cannot renege. It can't. If government could do it on its own, he won't come and ask you to change. The banks are cooperating. People have given them alternatives. Look at your budget. Like he said, you have what? You have a huge, the domestic debt is about 38 billion, 35 billion that's supposed to be spent. That's if you add the ESLA flows. Other than that, it's almost 31, 32. But you are putting in a capital expenditure of 27 billion. You are putting another 27 billion for contingency. How much is that? 54. Which part of paying 6.6 billion? All that individuals need is 6.6 billion.
And that can be paid.
You can pay them 6.6 billion. Pay them 6.6 billion, you pay their coupons, they can keep rolling over for you. It's not a crime. What's the total side? 15 billion. Meaning that if you actually let a part of your capex go, and maybe say you benchmark your previous capex, you can create room to take care of these individuals. But because your ego is more important than everything, because now it's not that you're waking up to legacy. That's it. Government is now waking up to a need for legacy, and he hasn't got the money to do the legacy. So you come to take pensioners' savings. Okay. You come to take a university graduate who has worked for 5 years and he wants to go and do his master's. These are the people you want to go and collect money. With 2 months, are there.
But so if all these things you're asking for, this size of government, tomorrow, if we wake up and there's an announcement that government is ready to look within as well, is the group ready to accept a review of the
ready? Look, we are reasonable people. I said, you've had taxes. Nobody has complained. Think about it, MFR. We're already having something I call social family cut. Your salary, taxes, additional taxes, that's chop some. Then you actually have your family members who have lost their jobs. You have to send them more social cuts. Now you also have your own people. You have to sort out social cut. Inflation too has cut you. So the Ghanaian walking on the street is already a cutted human being. Then you're coming to add it. That's why I say Exodus 5:1. Let my people go. You know, the thing right now, I know the president's heart. He doesn't want to involve individuals in this thing. He doesn't.
He doesn't?
Nanado doesn't.
So how come
we all know what's in the grapevine? The demons who are standing in the way.
Who are these demons?
Oh, they know themselves. And who are standing in the way and trying to make the president look like a senior oppressor. They should stay away. They should let God's people go. Today is Sunday, so we have to preach inside the thing. It is wrong. It is evil. Stop it. Stop destroying lives. And I'm telling you, politically, economically, this country will not recover if it takes this decision easily. Who's going to put money in government bonds? Who's going to even be confident to put money in a bank? Somebody sent me a message. You told me to invest in bonds. You see yourself? I'm old school. I keep my money in my dollar. Now, who is the fool?
Well, the issue about macroeconomic stability is also the key issue that many have talked about, because this mass or large-scale rejections is also the issue about the confidence that it brings, or the lack of it, for our investors, and the message that, or the signals we are sending out there, Professor Bokping, is also an issue that we need to tackle. Does it send good signals?
I think I agree with you that we should be concerned that together we want to be able to restore macroeconomic stability. I think, as I said, the Ghanaians have been very understanding. Look, let me tell you something. I have friends outside this country who tell me Ghanaians are so patient and all of that. We have been very accommodating. Look, if people get to know how politicians prioritize the future of their political parties and investors ahead of the common good, I don't want to say the rest, right? So it does, and it's simply because it's the approach government has adopted. You know, in the time past, government could abuse tax revenue and all of that, but we let go. You know, the middle class will sit in the comfort of their offices and all of that. But you see right now, it has gotten to the point where abuse of tax revenue is insufficient. Now they are coming after your savings, your investment, and your pension. Take it this way. Where I am even more worried is that if you look at Ghana, by 2038, we would have had at least 2 or 3 major elections. The way we do our election, we destroy the macroeconomic stability that we want to build now. So if you stagger somebody's payment across up to, let's say, 2038, look, before then, there may be another need for debt restructuring. This is Ghana.
Okay.
So if we are unable to leverage on the current crisis, and I'm calling on middle class, the TUC, this is the only opportunity Ghana has to shape governance for sustainable development. If we are unable to take advantage of this and ask government to come to the negotiation table so that we write a lifestyle for our politicians, so that, you look, if you can't take that lifestyle, go to private sector. If you see what is happening now, everybody wants to jump on the public purse and impose their lifestyle on us.
Yeah.
Okay, we should not allow that anymore. There's no future in that. So I think that the signal is also good for nation building, and that is what democracy is all about. That's why I said that what government is doing looks like we're under military rule. Democracy is competition of ideas. We harvest ideas. It is possible government knows something we don't know. When government engages with better quality data, it is likely that we may amend our position, right? And then we all come on board. We must recover together. We can only go far if we travel together. It is not the case that government balance sheet is the only balance sheet in the system. If you check the growth that we have in this country, the private sector contributes significantly. Look, tax revenue is at risk because DRA gets a lot of revenue from the banking sector, financial sector. This debt operation would affect revenue. It would affect profit. Look, if you look at the impairment losses alone, it's more than enough to wipe out the combined profit in the banking industry for last year.
Okay.
So sometimes if you don't look at some of these things, you may be ending to a zero-sum game or a negative-sum game. So let's look at it holistically.
Okay.
Well, let me give you some numbers. You are increasing capital expenditure by 12 billion. Last year, you did 15.7 billion. So, sweetheart, this 12 billion, how much do you owe the individual people? You owe them 15 billion. So if you decide to even keep your same level of capital expenditure as 2022, and bear in mind, this 15 billion is about one of the highest. The previous year was like 16 billion, but last year was 15, almost 16. This means you can actually pay these people off. When you look at compensation, you are increasing your compensation by 6.5 billion. So if you say you reduce that half and take out and reduce the size of government, you see one of the mistakes we make when we talk about size of government, people are thinking about just ministers. No. Go to the SOEs. Set an example like Bost. When Adoyobo and Akufo was there, the same number of tank farms, the people there were just about 70. Today, they are over 100, or they are over 500.
Well, some individual
and they are watching football. They are watching a soap opera on YouTube. Me, I go there, you will see them.
Oh.
There are many of the SOs. Right now, if you look at it, like he said, you see bank people in the private sector banks. Everybody wants, can you get me a job at Bank of Ghana? Can you get me a job at Bank of Ghana? Why do you want to go to the Bank of Ghana? You see, there's a lot of inefficiency. Everybody wants to now put their bed in there because that's where we created the luxury.
Okay.
We can't do that and say you want to live your big life and come and burden us with it. You saw this coming. You might be totally incompetent not to see this coming. Because
I have some more bondholders who want a definite answer about their fate if they decide not to participate in this particular invitation to exchange as it expires tomorrow. That deadline expires.
I'll give you.
What happens to them?
All right.
Linda is asking, and there's one from Gladys also. Are treasury bills completely excluded from the entire debt exchange program, or they are likely to be included as time goes on?
Today, treasury bills are out.
Yes.
We don't know about tomorrow. Yesterday, individuals were out. Today, they are in. That tells you the inconsistency and the lack of credibility. So let's go back to the credible thing and do it right. Take out the individuals, then you keep your word as it used to be.
Okay.
Now, on the issues on the legalities, one, nothing will happen to you.
Okay.
Your bonds, as you have now, will still be valid securities.
Okay.
It is clear in the Attorney General's ruling that unless you accept the terms of your bond cannot be varied. It comes from the Attorney General. This is not even me.
Okay.
And the other thing we should know, somebody suggested that it's not tradable. It's a lie.
Okay.
The only reason why some people were thinking about, because we're talking about the banks, there's some incentives that the central bank is giving banks. So if you hold that instrument and you are a bank, your risk rating on it will be 100%.
Okay.
So it means you have to make full provision for it. So if they put that kind of burden on you, you are in trouble.
Okay.
So that is why they will say they will not be able to even trade it amongst themselves. But you as an individual, you don't have that problem. The bond is legitimate and you will get your money. I've mentioned all the 4 bonds to you.
Yes, you did.
All of them have secured income. The rest have attachable income. And you have the best deal. This deal for individuals is what will potentially make your deal worthless. Because if tomorrow government says, I will not pay, you can't do government FOCO.
Okay.
So keep your bonds and reject the DDE. So hashtag say no to DDE. And don't fear anybody's bullying.
Thank you so much, Senator. We are grateful, Senor Jose, and then also Professor Godfred Bothing. We're indeed grateful. That's my guest for tonight here on The Probe. And the discussion continues. The minority is holding a press conference tomorrow, amongst others. We're hoping to hear from government on this. So far, nothing from government just yet. There's more when you log on to myjournal.com. Have a good evening.